Hello everyone, I'm RedBeakRaven and welcome to a discussion video on Half-Life 3, or Half-Life 2 Episode 3 as it may be called. In this video I am going to try and answer the question, will we stop waiting for the next Half-Life game? And also talk about some other things that relate to the future of the series. So before I really dive deep into this, the reason I decided to do this is because I've been playing Half-Life recently, and more specifically the third-party project that is Black Mesa, which I can highly recommend to anyone that is a fan of this series. It is a nice piece of work from the developers Crowbar Collective, as they have spent years working on this project. It's still in early access, but again I would recommend it to fans of the series, or if you're a fan of Half-Life 2 and can't stand the first Half-Life but want to experience it, then this is a much better way to do that. Anyways, apart from that, there isn't really any other reason why I decided to make this video other than wanting to give you my thoughts on the whole Half-Life 3 fiasco and seeing what you all think. I would like to say it's to keep the interest in this going, but I don't think the world's tired of hoping for another one of these just yet. Now more to the point, it has almost been a decade since Episode 2 was released, and ever since then we have been patiently awaiting Episode 3, the supposedly grand finale of Half-Life 2's overall story, and possibly the final Half-Life installment, although that particular statement is debatable, much like everything else really when it comes to Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3. You know what, let's just call it Half-Life 3 for now. That is the general thought about the next installment anyways. A lot of people have agreed that the next one will be a separate game rather than a DLC, especially since a lot's changed since Episode 2. So before I come up with an answer to the main question, let's take a look back at when Half-Life started to not necessarily fall apart, but rather drift away. So back around the time Half-Life 2's episodes were being released, Gabe Newell had said that the Half-Life 2 episodes are essentially Half-Life 3, as he didn't want to force fans to wait a long time for a full sequel. Yeah, that's not going down so well now, is it? So that's why they released the game in episodic installments, and I can't say whether or not that was a good idea, but from how long we've had to wait for a definitive conclusion to the series, it probably would have been a lot better had they waited and created another fully fledged sequel. But I am not Valve, so I have no idea what their long-time plan was, if any at all. I don't think back then they had any plans to work on VR, as I think they started work on that around 4 or 5 years ago. However, we could assume that they were working on Portal, as the first game was released the same year that Episode 2 was released, and after that we can assume they went to work on the Left 4 Dead series, as they released that in 2008 and then released a sequel only a year later. Then we can look towards things like Counter-Strike Global Offense, Portal 2, Dota 2, Virtual Reality, and also more recently the Source Engine 2. So it's obvious that they've been very busy indeed. Valve are not a huge corporation with thousands of employees. They are a private company with no bosses, with one of the coolest offices in the world, and are worth about as much as a big Hollywood film company. They are the biggest PC game distributor, and that alone tells us that Valve doesn't need to make Half-Life 3 for financial reasons, as they dominate the PC gaming platform, which generates an enormous amount of money. So they'd have to make Half-Life 3 because they wanted to, and I don't see what's wrong with that, because if they were working on a game just to satisfy their fans, but they themselves were not satisfied doing it, then chances are the outcome of that project would not be great. Last year, Gabe Newell appeared in a podcast hosted by Geoff Keighley, where he shed some light on how Valve has and is going to spend their time. When the topic of Half-Life was in the air without actually stating it was Half-Life they were talking about, Gabe said, "The only reason we'd go back and do like a super classic kind of product is if a whole bunch of people just internally at Valve said they wanted to do it and had a reasonable explanation for why they did." So that could be the reason as to why they haven't released another piece of Half-Life content, but I don't think that's the reason at all. It makes no sense for them to suddenly stop working on something like Half-Life, especially when back in 2006, Valve stated that they were going to release an episodic trilogy for Half-Life 2. And if you go on Steam right now and go to the store page for Episode 2, you'll see that the description reads, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 is the second in a trilogy of new games created by Valve. Not to point out the obvious, but that's clearly false advertising. We should sue. That alone is one reason why some of us are still waiting for this, because Valve didn't, or rather haven't, delivered on their promise. At least I think it was a promise. So what exactly is causing the delay? Does anyone really have any bloody idea as to what's going on? Over the years it's been said that they are working on it, but because they are doing all these other things as well as VR, the development has been slow. It's also been said that there's no Half-Life 3 because of how Valve has changed from being just a games developer to a corporation that distributes games and makes technology technology such as the HTC Vive and the Steam machines. My opinion on this is that maybe Half-Life 3 has taken so long to be released due to numerous different reasons. Maybe reasons that we'll never really know, maybe Valve are looking to win the award for the biggest surprise of the year by surprising fans with a sudden release. They could get out of bed one day and say, so-and-so's discounted on Steam today, oh, and the next Half-Life is on there as well, enjoy. That would not be, well, it would be a surprise, sure, but Half-Life 3 would need next to no marketing for it to be a commercial success. So there isn't any need for E3 showcases and dragged out periods of waiting after an announcement trailer is released. Let's be honest, there are fans out there, including me, who would buy this game if all we knew was what the logo looked like. Another theory of mine, as well as others, is that Valve were waiting for VR. One of the more recent speculations about this game is that because Half-Life will be celebrating its 20th anniversary in 2018, that's when Valve will drop the bomb and say something along the lines of, 20 years ago we wanted to create a 3D horror action game, and now we've created a virtual reality experience like no other. Gabe drops the mic and Half-Life 3 is shown on the screen. Wherever they are, assuming there's a big screen. That's what I'm imagining right now, but could it be VR ready in 2018? There is a lot of rumours suggesting that this is what Valve has been planning, and Valve have been dedicated to creating truly stunning, solid, smooth, fantastic, and whatever other word you want to use to describe this, quality VR. And what better game to test that with than with a first-person action shooter horror and physics game like Half-Life. To be honest, Half-Life 2 had a little bit of everything really. It wasn't hard to be immersed in Half-Life's dystopian world, and VR is only going to further that immersion. If all goes to plan, it will further it in a way like no other. With VR, we would be completely lost in these worlds. It's like going to the cinema. The room goes dark, the film starts playing, and you switch off from the outside world. No care for finances or schedules. The dread of going to work is almost forgotten unless you're lucky enough to enjoy what you do. But the point is, this is the sort of thing that I think Valve really wanted to do. There is probably other reasons as to why they stopped working on Half-Life back then, but since they started working on VR, maybe that prolonged the plans to get back into the series as they wanted it to be a fully working VR experience. And seeing as though VR is still in its early days, it's more than likely that we won't see this rumoured VR-ready Half-Life for a long time yet. On top of VR, there's also the rumoured Left 4 Dead 3, Steam machines, and Steam itself, which is long overdue for a redesign. In my opinion anyways. They could be working on another Portal, although there are some who believe that Half-Life's universe and Portals are one and the same. If that turns out to be true, then that might also explain Half-Life 3's delay. I could go on for ages as to why we haven't seen a new Half-Life game yet, but I am now going to actually answer the question, will we ever stop waiting for another Half-Life game? My answer to this would be no, and for one simple reason. Valve has never said it won't be happening. The fact that they refuse to comment on Half-Life is enough for us fans to believe that there is a possibility that we will see another installment, even if it is just a very small possibility. Gabe has changed his answer over the years and has pushed aside more and more questions about Half-Life 3. It all started out as Gabe's response being something along the lines of, we are working on it, but that soon changed to simply, no comment. Maybe not as bluntly as that, at least not all of the time, but if you look through interviews with him over the past 5 or 6 years or so, you'll see that he essentially says the same thing, that he has nothing to say about it. Just so you know, I'm not hating on him, so please don't think that. I am merely stating what's what. So yes, it all comes down to Valve not saying anything, and sometimes and somehow, not saying anything can say a lot. Another reason why I don't think we'll ever stop waiting is because the interest will always be there. Half-Life 2 is a game that left a mark on the industry. It's a game that probably a large portion of your friends list on Steam will have, and it's been ranked as one of the best PC games of all time. Something as iconic as that doesn't die away easily, and with things such as the ever popular Garry's Mod keeping it in circulation, or the Black Mesa remake, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And when, or more appropriately, if another Half-Life is released, the next one will create an unimaginable amount of hype that I don't think could ever be matched. If you thought GTA 5 or Fallout 4's hype train was huge, then I imagine Half-Life's hype probably being at least twice that, and I don't believe that's an exaggeration, or a fan being biased. Well, maybe a bit biased, but aren't we all when it comes to games that we love? So for now, the 50-year wait for Half-Life 3 continues, and are we going to stop waiting for this game yet? I don't think so. Whether it's because Valve haven't said that they aren't doing it, or because the IP hasn't been picked up by anybody else, we'll continue to wait, or at least I will. You can do what you want, but you're missing out. I really need to go play something other than Half-Life. Anyways, that's all I have to say on this. Now, more importantly, let me know what you guys think. Are you still hoping for another Half-Life installment? Do you think we should continue to wait, or have you given up all hope of ever stepping into the shoes of Gordon Freeman again? What is your opinion on why we haven't seen anything yet? Let me know in the comments below. I am interested in seeing how people feel about this nowadays. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you soon.